Greetings, I'm Dev the Developer. This lesson covers the meter element, a native HTML element for displaying a scalar value within a known range. It is a small but useful tool for dashboards, ratings, and gauge style displays. Meter elements represent a measurement within a known range. Think of it like a fuel gauge or a battery indicator. There's a minimum, a maximum, and a current value somewhere between them. It's important to distinguish meter from progress. Progress is for showing completion of a task, how far along the process is. Meter is for showing a static value that sits within a range but is not necessarily moving towards a completion state. Temperature reading, a score, storage utilization percentage. Let's look at how to write one. Meter elements have an opening and closing tag. The text between the tags is fallback content for browsers that do not support the element. Provide it, but expect it to rarely appear. The three essential elements are value, min, and max. Value is the current measurement. Min is the lowest possible value and defaults to 0 if omitted. Max is the highest possible value, which defaults to 1 if omitted. The fallback text only appears in browsers that cannot render meter. For everyone else, the browser renders its default gauge UI. The core attributes get you a working meter, but there are 3 more that make it smarter about signaling. 3 additional attributes let you tell the browser what ranges are good, acceptable, and bad. Browsers use these to change the color of the gauge automatically. Low marks the upper boundary of the low end. Values below low are considered in the low range. High marks the lower boundary of the high end. Values above high are considered in the high range. Optimum indicates the ideal value. The browser uses it to determine whether the current value is in a good zone, a warning zone, or a bad zone. The exact color rendering depends on the browser. The browser rendered colors are not consistent across browsers and cannot be easily styled with standard CSS. If you need precise visual control over the meter, you are better off building a custom CSS bar. But for cases where semantic element is appropriate and default rendering is acceptable, the meter element does the job without any extra code. Now we know how to use the meter element for scalar measurements within a known range. We can use value, min, and max to define the measurements. We can use low, high, and optimum to signal the zones. We should always use fallback text between tags for older browsers, and it is a native HTML element with no JavaScript required, and that's the point. Use it when the semantic fits and the default rendering is good enough. When you need pixel perfect control, CSS has you covered. Build a meter with all the same settings, then move the value through different zones and see how the browser works. Don't just watch it, do it.